This morning, we're following the rising tensions out of the Middle East. Yesterday, Iran fired about 180 missiles into Israeli territory, most intercepted with the help of American forces, and no deaths have been reported inside Israel. Iranian officials are warning against any retaliation, saying Tehran will hit Israel's entire infrastructure if it takes any more action. Joining us now, NBC News chief international correspondent Keir Simmons, live from Doha, Qatar, and NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel, live in Tyre, Lebanon. Richard, let me begin with you. What are you hearing in terms of a possible retaliation now from Israel?
Well, Israel's made it clear that it is going to respond. I've spoken to very senior U.S. military officials. They fully believe that Israel is going to respond. It's a matter of when, not if. The question that everyone in this region is asking right now is how severe will Israel strike back at Iran? Will it try to carry out regime change? Will it be a symbolic strike like it was after April? Will it go after Iran's nuclear sites? The Pentagon made it clear yesterday in a Pentagon briefing that the U.S. fully supports a strike, but wants it to be commensurate with what happened. So I think right now Israel is still calibrating its response. It is coordinating its response with the United States. We're entering a period of Jewish holidays, so the expectation is it might take a few more days before we see an Israeli response. If you parse the words that Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu was saying yesterday, he listed off the names of militant leaders who have attacked Israel in the past, nearly all of them subsequently assassinated by Israel, and he said that Iran is going to learn that same lesson. So it is also possible, quite possible, that we will see targeted strikes against specific Iranian leaders. A lot of options on the table. That there will be a response to this.
And Richard, what are you hearing about a potential attack on Iran's nuclear program, something that's been talked about for many, many years, and now perhaps a door opened for Israel to do that? Is that likely, unlikely? What are you hearing?
Not hearing anything that specific. That would be the most sensitive, classified kind of information. But as looking at this region, it would certainly be feasible. Last April, the Israelis struck back near a nuclear facility. Iran is developing what it calls a nuclear power program, and I could easily hear Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu making an argument. He hasn't made it yet, but I could hear this argument coming that last night Israel, with the help of its allies, including the United States, defended itself against this ballistic missile barrage. But what if those ballistic missiles had been topped with nuclear weapons? Israel could never tolerate such a situation. So I could easily see Israel using this as a justification to attack the nuclear sites. It would be an escalation, but that's the situation we're in. We seem to be in an escalatory phase, but there are still optimists. I've spoken to several diplomats in the region who hope that this can be a moment to de-escalate. So a lot of things are on the table, but yes, I could see, Willie, a strike on the nuclear facilities. I could see that, the rationale for that being made.
Here, let's talk about those diplomatic options. Iran's president arriving later today in Qatar. What more can you tell us about that meeting?
Well, that's right, Willie. Qatar provides fascinating context and really a snapshot of what a future president, the kind of world a future president will have to deal with. Because you're right, Pezeshkian, the Iranian president, is flying here to Qatar, a country that geographically and diplomatically is positioned in the middle of all this, if you like, describes itself as a mediator. He is flying here to Qatar less than 24 hours after Iran launched those strikes against Israel. Others who are coming here, China, Russia, India, all of the Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain. And who else is here? Hamas is here. They have a headquarters here, and that we sat down with them just this morning, just a few hours after that attack. Bassem Naim, a senior official from Hamas, he criticized, he gave me a picture really of how Hamas continue to fuel all this. He criticized Arab countries for not doing enough to support Hamas, and at the same time he said, quote, "I have no clue whether we will meet with the Iranians when they are here." Take a listen.
Iran finally last night launched less than 200 missiles. Are you disappointed by the support or reaction that you've seen from Iran?
It is a war crime to assassinate the top negotiator of Hamas, regardless in Tehran, in Beirut. It is their decision how to do it, operational decision, logistical decision, how to do it.
I mean, would you expect it? More support from Iran?
Look, we are expecting support not only from the Iranians, we are expecting some support from anyone in the region and outside the region, because we are people under occupation and we are looking for our freedom and dignity.
Some more news, Joe, from that interview. He says Yahya Sinwar, the leader now of Hamas, is still alive. He is still, quote, communicating with his people on the ground, communicating with the leadership outside. Mohammed Daif, the head of the Hamas military wing, he says he is still alive. The Israelis have said they had killed him some months ago. And he also says, and this is well, whoever you hear it from, this is plainly distressing for the families of the hostages. He says there haven't been real negotiations since July 2nd. He says there's every now and then there's an oral briefing by the brokers, by which he means countries like Qatar, about their talks to the Israelis, by which he means a kind of circumlocutory way that this negotiation happens, finally ending with conversations with the Israelis. So while all of this is going on, everything that Richard talked about, those families of the hostages are on the sidelines, you would have to say, frankly, at this point.
Yeah, and it's so tragic. The tragedy continues for them. You bring up, Keir, Qatar, and you bring up all the leaders that are coming to Qatar, and it just takes us back to the beginning of this crisis on October 7th. And in the month leading up to October, talk about the unique position that Qatar finds itself in. Yes, having Hezbollah leaders and Hamas leaders there, but also being the place where Benjamin Netanyahu continued to go for years, telling Qatar to fund Hamas. And even 3 weeks beforehand, Netanyahu pushing Qatar to fund Hamas right before the October 7th attacks. How does Qatar fit in the, because it's too simple to just say, oh yeah, they support terrorists that want to destroy Israel. They have also been Israel's instrument to fund some of those terrorist organizations. Why?
Yeah, that's right. Certainly Hamas is here, and we've seen, for example, of course, the Taliban here at times. Qatar is the poster child, really, for the argument that it is worth mediating, that it makes sense to have connections with all different groups, no matter how objectionable those groups might be, in order to be able to talk. And let's be honest, that perspective is under threat, is under pressure right now. I mean, ultimately, October 7th really put it under pressure because, effectively what had been happening was that Hamas had been effectively allowed to thrive, frankly, with the idea that it could be managed. October 7th crushed that idea. And now what you have is a argument, a debate, frankly, led by the Israelis over whether you can say the same about the Iranians. Now, the Iranian president, as I mentioned, is on his way here, and there are mixed messages from Iran. The Iranian president, who was at the United Nations, at the UNGA just recently, appearing to try to argue for negotiation, that seemed to try to suggest that Iran might be prepared to compromise. And yet, last night, you have those almost 200 missiles fired by Iran once again against Israel. So Qatar is stuck in the middle. It has its critics, but it certainly is battling to make its argument right now.